Minister, as you know, the July provision is the extended school year, which is not available to the vast majority of children with Down syndrome, leaving them at a huge educational disadvantage. However, there was a recent High Court settlement whereby children at the centre of the action who have various education and social needs now will receive additional schooling under the July provision scheme. In light of this recent ruling, Minister, I am asking the Government to consider extending the July provision scheme to all children with Down syndrome. At the moment, the scheme allows an extra month of tuition during the month of July for children, as you will well know. Those children who have specific diagnosis of an autism spectrum disorder or a severe or profound general learning disability. The scheme is very beneficial as it makes sure children do not regress over the long summer holidays. I have been contacted by numerous parents associated with Down Syndrome Ireland in the Roscommon branch who feel that the exclusion of their children from the provision scheme is an injustice and indeed is a disgrace. How can the Irish education system and the government leave children with Down syndrome behind? And that is what is happening. And you are denying them the right to learn at their own pace. Minister, I believe in light of this recent High Court ruling, it is imperative that the July provision scheme now be extended to all children with Down syndrome. On a separate, wider note, parents of children with Down syndrome in the county of Roscommon also tell me of the great difficulties they have in accessing occupational therapists, speech therapists and indeed physiotherapists in the county. Many parents of children with Down syndrome have to finance the costs of those services themselves because of the serious lack of services provided by the HSE, as they are being placed under serious financial pressure to do so. Even when the services are provided by the HSE, the visits can be infrequent and piecemeal from therapists and insufficient to meet the needs of the children. I am informed by some therapists themselves that they have too many children assigned to them and as a result cannot provide a more regular service. More therapists in those areas are required, as at present the therapists are expecting parents and teachers to carry out the programmes. So, Minister, I am sure you are well aware of this. The change needs to be made. I hope that you can recognise and bring the message I have here back to government, that we can rectify this situation in relation to July provision and give those children a decent chance in life.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. You have 4 minutes for your initial reply.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. At the outset, I want to apologise for the Minister for Education and the Minister of State in the department. Was unavoidably detained as well due to the scheduling of the Dáil earlier on, so apologies for that. And at the outset, Deputy, I recognise the issues that you have raised, and I know that they are issues that are commonplace in other constituencies as well. So I want to thank you for raising it, as it provides me with an opportunity on behalf of the Minister for Education to outline the current position. The July provision scheme provides funding for an extended school year for students with severe or profound intellectual disabilities and students with autism spectrum disorders. The scheme was developed to reduce potential regression in learning associated with these specific categories of specific educational needs over the summer holidays. The NCSE, which advises the Minister on these matters, published its policy advice on educational provision for children with autism in July 2016, which included a review of the July scheme. The review found in general parents valued the July provision because it provides daytime respite for families and a structured day as well for students. However, the NCSE review found a number of problems with the scheme. These included concerns that the scheme may be inequitable because it is not provided to all students with complex special educational needs. The Council recommended that the relevant government departments consider how an equitable National Day activity scheme could convene an implementation group to ensure that the report's recommendations are fully and appropriately considered. There has been consultation with a number of other departments and state agencies regarding the future direction of the July education programme. It is expected that the group will make recommendations shortly concerning a revised scheme which will be implemented next year at the earliest. Before any changes are made, there will be consultations with the stakeholders. The Dáil will be aware aware that the Department settled 2 High Court cases recently where children with Down syndrome had sought access to the July provision scheme. While the terms of the settlement are confidential, I want to clarify on behalf of the Minister for Education that the children concerned were not given access to the scheme. Officials met with Down Syndrome Ireland yesterday to discuss implications of the settlement and will be in further contact with them this week. And I also want to just inform the Deputy that the Minister is scheduled to meet Down Syndrome Ireland next week.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy, 2 minutes for a supplementary statement.
Well, thank you very much, Cathaoirleach, and again thank you, Minister. And I know that from your own constituency you will know and be aware, like many TDs, of this situation. And look, I welcome the fact that discussions are taking place. I welcome that those meetings will take place next week. The only regret I have is that we're going into discussions again. I mean, looking at the NEAC and what they have said, they are quite clearly saying, you know, we do need to do something for those Down syndrome children. Parents are under enormous stress, and we can all acknowledge and recognise that. And the July provision, if it was applying to Down syndrome children, would be a huge help, a huge benefit. And of course, as I've already stated, it is very important that their education needs are looked after during the summer. They are special cases, they need that help. Now, we have to, in my view, look after people like this and their parents and give them every chance that we can. And while I welcome what you're telling me here, Minister, and I do know that you have a knowledge of this yourself because you will be aware of it from your own constituency, I don't want discussions to be going on and on and on and no changes taking place. Now, obviously, the High Court decision of last week in relation to 2 children with Down syndrome, while I accept what you say, it didn't give them full access to the system, but it certainly has changed the goalposts. And I think we all have to recognise now that we must act and respond to that High Court judgment, because it certainly, in my view, means that there's a dissatisfaction there, as far as the court is concerned, in the way those children are being discriminated against. So, Minister, I won't labour the point. You know where I'm coming from. As I said, you have an understanding of the situation, and all deputies round here, I'm sure, have cases in their own constituencies. So I hope that we can move things on quickly and rapidly and get a better system in place as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Deputy. Minister, 2 minutes to conclude.
Yeah, I think, Deputy, and again, the points that you have raised will be relayed to the Minister for Education. And look, you make some very valid and legitimate points, and I would be reflecting on it. Not only I'm not in the department, as I said at the outset, but I am a teacher, and I understand the importance of the July provision and its delivery, and there are different methodologies of it. You know, some is school-based, some is home-based. It is under the direction of the National Council for Special Education that the Minister will take his policy direction in terms of trying to formulate a decision. But I suppose at the end of the day, what the Minister will obviously try and do is to be in a position where, when he does reflect on it, and having had the discussions which I think are important with the Down Syndrome Ireland group, that it'll provide him with an opportunity, I think, in conjunction with his dialogue with the NCSE, to be better in a position to make a decision on how to move forward. But I think the points that you make are very well made. They're not unique to any particular constituency, and I know that we all deal with parents of children with special needs and intellectual disabilities, and I know the teachers that deal with them as well, and they are challenging, and these are special children, and they're special children for a special reason, and I think that up to now the July provision has been a very good scheme, and I think really, Deputy, what you're asking for is that it be improved upon rather than changed. And certainly, look, I will reflect your views to the Minister for Education, and I'd ask him to respond directly to you.
Thank you, Minister. And moving on to topical.